Well, thank you all for joining. We're planning on giving you guys an update on the Airport Entities program, specifically focusing here on the baggage handling system. And so we're just going to give you a quick introduction of the program, what we've been doing so far, and then dive into the progress of BHS. And Mike will then have a small showcase of how you are able to use the BHS from the buildingSMART data dictionary into your software. So might be a little bit shorter than normal, but if you have any questions, just let us know. So to start, the Airport Entities program is part of the programs and projects. We are restructuring the airport domain, and so we created like kind of a pillar of the Airport Entities program. And for the future, the idea is to add different types of programs and projects to this pillar. But for now, we're focusing on the Airport Entities program. And the reason we have the Airport Entities Program, previously known as the Airport Entities Project, is because of the complexity of airports, as probably all of you know. But airports do consist of a wide range of assets, so we're basically a small city, making it very complex for both the project phases as the maintenance and operation phases. A lot of it is already standardized, but a lot of it has not been standardized yet. And specifically the airport specific objects. And that's kind of what this project is focusing on. So by creating those clear agreements within the airport community, focusing on only those airport objects that are currently missing from the IFC schema, we hope to eventually create more value throughout the asset life cycle. By reducing the redundancies and inconsistencies, as probably maybe you guys are also experiencing. There's a lot of discussion about the different phases and reusing of the objects, every party giving it a different name or using the IFC element building proxy. And so by creating a standardized naming convention in that everyone's speaking the same language, we're hoping to kind of smooth out the whole process of asset lifecycle information.
Yeah, I will take over for the next slides from here. Why do we do this? Ariska mentioned it already, the importance of a common language for the exchange of information is crucial. And as an example, we brought you here the ABC reader. Next. Or can I steer the...
Sorry, no, I don't know. Can you steal it for me? I can fix it.
So this machine or this assemble of things that you can see on the picture has to have a name to talk about. And we call it the ABC reader, the automatic border control. But it can be named differently. And it has a specific purposes, that it has a specific meaning within the whole context of an airport. But those meanings, those purposes can be different according to or inside of the perspective that you have. Different people, different stakeholders of the whole airport process have different perspectives on this thing and might call it differently. Next, please. Next. So we gave it a name. We gave it the name in our classification according to the buildingSMART International Airport Domain Dictionary, so the dictionary that we host on the bSDD. And we mapped it into the IFC schema. We mapped it into the class IFC Communications Appliance with a user-defined type automatic border passage. But this is due to the fact that we don't have all those classes and types that could define it better. But by giving it a specific classification in the bSDD, it becomes a unique definition. So this one can be identified by a classification uniquely. Next, please. But then we sent out this survey to a lot of different institutions and partners and asked them about their idea of mapping and naming conventions. And we found out that our idea of naming it ABC Reader was not a common idea. So there are many different ways to call this, and that depends on how you consider it, how you give it a purpose. And that means that before we start giving things names, we need to define the use for the name. So why do we exchange information? We exchange it for a specific use case. And without a use case, we can have any name. We can give it any name. But when you know the use and the purpose, then we come closer to a common idea of the naming conventions, and then afterwards also the properties that it might carry. Next. So the definition of a common ontology is crucial for the international exchange between humans and between machines, and that's important, that we don't get into a misunderstanding, that we have a clarity about what we are talking about and what we can expect in a digital data environment, what we can expect from this class, from this type, from this classification, what properties it will carry and what values might be possible. Next one. So, and there are, as Ariska mentioned already, there are many different objects at the airport that don't have a mapping, that can't be mapped into IFC, because IFC is the industry foundation classes, so the very basic foundation, and it has not been carried in this foundation specific items like the gangways or the luggage disposals for the automatic weighing and transportation. All those entities, all those types do not exist in the classification schema of IFC yet. So what we did is to structure the data. We came up with different kind of sectors: baggage handling, airport-specific security systems, and passenger control. While this is maybe something that is horizontally across many different domains, can also be applied to harbors or train stations. Then we have the navigate and meteorological equipment, which is maybe more specific to airports. We have this section of civil airfields and the terminals, of course. While the terminals carry a lot of common entities like walls, doors, windows, and the like, it has also specific items that are unique to airports. And all those things, when we can find a common naming convention, they all need specific properties, and we want to map them into the IFC4 and the IFC 4.3 mapping schema. So we started with the baggage handling systems, and we have it we came so far that we said the naming of the classes and types we can agree on, but we don't have the properties yet. And the properties need to be defined according to a specific purpose, according to a specific need. What we then did is to put this into the bSDD, into the buildingSMART data dictionary. And it exists already since quite some time now and can be addressed by via APIs. So you can use it within your specific software, and you can derive the naming convention and definition that we came up with in the airport entities program, sorry. And you can also use it for IDS, for the information delivery specification, to transport the classifications into your BIM authoring software and to use it for the validation of a specific model. Next one. So, and we didn't do this in a small group. We sent it out. We sent out the survey to many partners, many stakeholders of the airport industry and the like. So those are all our partners that took part in the survey. Next one. So this is.
Yep. So with the different surveys were actually sent out, I think almost a year ago, or maybe even longer. And once we started with baggage, with the baggage handling system, like Morten mentioned, we kind of came to the conclusion that we needed properties. An example, I think, was the chute. We got a lot of feedback saying, "Hey, you have a parallel chute and a spiral chute. Are we making two separate entities for that, two different classifications, or do we just create one chute with a property direction?" So the properties was actually decided on that we needed an airport-specific property set once we went through the results of the baggage handling system. And that also kind of made us think like, hey, maybe we should just first finish the whole baggage handling system before we move on to evaluating the other survey results. So those other survey results are on hold as of now, and hopefully I'm kind of skipping to the conclusion now, but with all of you, more people showing interest in helping, we can actually use that expertise to go through the survey results quicker and use the baggage handling system as kind of like our base, our lessons learned, everything that we run into here, we can use for going through the other survey results quicker. And therefore we kind of moved on with the BHS. And so what we did is once we went through all of the survey results from the BHS and kind of concluded that we also needed the properties, we published the BHS set to the buildingSMART data dictionary, which Mike will show you in the next slides. We approached Vanderlande. We sent them a letter asking if they were willing to collaborate with us to kind of test out the classification that we published on the bSDD, and if it's something that would work for them as basically the specialists on in the markets. And so they agreed. So that was very nice. And so we had a couple of sessions together with Vanderlande. I think we've had two, just to kind of get to know each other, what we are specifically looking for, and the request to Vanderlande is to take a look at it and to give us feedback. And so they gave us feedback. We had the workshop session where we focused on the outcomes and how they are experiencing the current publication in the buildingSMART data dictionary, and we kind of concluded that we needed a few more sessions to really align the needs from Vanderlande with the current IFC decomposition. So we have a session on Monday, this Monday coming up next week, to have kind of like a technical workshop with a very small delegation to align the BHS with the IFC decomposition. And we kind of want to use that to then have another session where more people from other airports can also join and help with the discussion. But I think we're using this session to kind of bring all our thoughts, put it on paper, and kind of looking all the same direction to and use that to move forward. So those next steps, they were a little ambitious. We're not going to be able to make that. So the first technical workshop is now early November, and we have to reevaluate the next sessions that will come out of it. And hopefully then we can also present together with Vanderlande at one of those industry forums to kind of finish off this project and put a big check mark next to it so we can move on to the next session or the next category of the survey results. Tina?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I haven't done that slide before, but I can try. So
if you need help, let me know.
So what we got now is to talk about the technical outcomes regarding the input of Vanderlande and the airport domain requirements. So we've got the challenges of a classification and of course, combined with that, we need to define the properties regarding the different classifications we find out. And we've also got to map this into IFC. And this is all regarding use cases. As Morten mentioned before, if you are looking at properties within the IFC data structure, we need to know why we need an information. And by that, we need to define the use cases, of course. So it's all about collaboration and simulation, but we always have to have a look at the final result, and that would be maintenance and operation, of course. I think with Edwin, we had the first discussion about the confusing wording we use in IFC, what Vanderlande is using. So Vanderlande showed us their categories like area, zone, section, object, and element. And of course, we don't use these kind of categories within IFC. What we've got in IFC is the distribution system. And next. Next, perfect, thanks. So for an example, I used ventilation. Within ventilation, we can group all single elements like pipes and ducts and valves and sensors into an IFC distribution circuit. So for example, for BHS, we've got chutes like Ariska mentions, also sensors and conveyor belts and alarms. So we can say, okay, we've got an IFC distribution circuit that combines all these single elements for routing. The next one, thanks, would be a distribution system, which contains all larger equipment, for example, ventilation. The next one. Is a grouping. So we can group IFC distribution circuit and IFC distribution system to an IFC system. If we got different ventilation systems, we've got different IFC systems. And the last possibility we've got to combine all topics of ventilation would be IFC group. So next. How can we put all of this together into the wording of Vanderlande and BHS? Next one, please. Yeah, so we need to map them and systemize it. And for example, next. A lot of animation, I know. So what we can do is the systematization of IFC distribution circuit can be mapped to BHS as well as next the distribution system, the larger components, and combining all that could be IFC system, and in the end we also get an IFC group. We haven't discussed this or these slides with Vanderlande yet, so first time you see it as well, but I think we can have a good understanding when we talk about IFC systems and if Vanderlande is talking about areas or groups. So yes, cool. Yeah. So what is important is that we define these kind of systematizations right in the beginning of a project, because we use it all the time within design, in planning, construction, and of course in maintenance and operation, which is the huge goal, to have all this information within a running airport. So next. Right now, we can say, okay, we know what kind of elements we will have in models when we're finished with the entities project, but we also have got the systematization within IFC systems. What we need now is to define what kind of properties, information, all these elements and systems hold. So we've got the requirements of the airport domain regarding projects and maintenance operation, but we also got real projects from our airports. Like we've got a huge terminal extension right now in Vienna. For that, we use use cases, of course, within the IFC guidelines or the Open BIM guidelines like EIR and BEP, but we've got also a lot of guidelines strictly concerning maintenance and operation. How we do that to get out the information we will need in the end is next. You heard it before, bSDD, buildingSMART data dictionary. Within bSDD, we can define the entities, the predefined types, and the properties, which can also be used within the projects of the airports. Next. And the next step would be all this experience and all these real-time projects can be defined as an IDS, as an information delivery specification. So basically the level of information that can be put back into the airport domain. And what all of these topics got in common, next, is of course IFC. That's our basis, and I hope we can do it in short term.
Yeah, I think Ariska, Morten, and Tina, they talked about how we gathered all this information, how we collaborated to get all the baggage handling specific information, and upload that into the buildingSMART data dictionary service. So we have the Airport Domain IFC extension module, which is the result of all this work, which has been done by a lot of people here in the call as well. Currently, we're focusing on BHS only. Of course, BHS is not everything within an airport, but you have to start somewhere. And so the current focus is BHS, and then in packages, we will learn from BHS and we will add other packages such as airfield lighting, navaids, and all these airport-specific stuff. So what you're looking at now is the human visible way of looking at the domain, which is the bSDD airport website. So it starts with buildingSMART Airport Domain, which is the organization, and then it shows the domain itself, which is called Airport Domain IFC extension. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see it's version 1.0 and it's been verified. Next slide. Which means that it complies with the guidelines that buildingSMART has set. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that currently there are 31 classes in the airport domain. And in the next slide, you'll see an example of one of those classes, which is check-in conveyor. And you'll see, okay, we came up with the name. We all agreed check-in conveyor is how we're going to call this from now on. There's a unique code which makes it machine interpretable, of course. There's a URI, which is a link to this information, basically. And then, very important, if you go to the next slide, there's the definition of the, in this case, check-in conveyor. And this is very important because this ensures that everybody here is talking about the same thing. So in the past, we noticed in discussions that ABC reader, I think Morten is called it an automatic boarding control reader. We called it an automatic boarding card reader. So there's misinterpretation. So the definition is very important. And the definition, we based it on existing standards. In this case, the IATA design reference manual. So we looked up the design manual and we took the definition that's in there and we came up with a format to capture this definition. So in this case, the format, you see it on the right upper side, is ACID. And then if it has an abbreviation, we mention the abbreviation, and then it represents the function. And the function we took out of the airport or the IATA document. If you go to the next slide. Also very important, each classification has its own properties. So here you see the example of a check-in conveyor, which has a quite large set of properties. If you go to the next slide, you'll see an example of the property. So in this case, a conveying speed, very important property for us as the designer, but I'm quite sure that for Vanderlande, a supplier, this is also very important. And even for an asset manager, I think this is one of those properties that everybody needs. But very important is we made an agreement, okay, how do we call this? Conveying speed, not in Dutch, not in, we can translate it later, but conveying speed is what we are currently using. And the other important thing is we also define the units. So it's milliseconds. It's not meters per second. It's milliseconds. So now we know if we insert a value, we all know this is milliseconds. I think it's quite important aspect of the digital standardization in this case. And if you go to the next slide, this is the last part. This is the relation. So one of the most common relations is we related each classification to an IFC entity. So we mapped it to the most suitable IFC entity, in this case a very suitable one, because we see IFC conveyor segment and a belt conveyor, which already gives a good understanding what it is, but checking conveyor is even more detailed. So this is a more elaborate way of defining what we are talking about. And in the future, that's the nice thing about the buildingSMART data dictionary. You can create relations between all kinds of buildingSMART domains. So you can even relate it in the future maybe to IATA domain if it will exist, but also to existing domains like unit class and uniformat, which are classification systems widely used. If you go to the next slide. In practice, at least at NACO at this moment, what we do is we have our designers, which model, in this case in Revit. They have their BHS model, their baggage model. And we developed a plugin that connects Revit to the buildingSMART data dictionary. In this case, we connect to the airport domain. We choose the entity, you see it on the right side, the entity we think the object should have. We select the objects that in this case are check-in conveyors, and we press the assign button. What happens then is a couple of things. All information that is within the bSDD and relevant, like the classification we just talked about, the properties, the IFC relation, they get pushed into the objects within Revit. So it's a standardized way of naming your objects, of defining your properties, of defining the units within your properties. You see that on the left side. If you go to the next slide. The result is, this is in Solibri, an IFC model created from the Revit model you just saw. It now contains standardized information. So if you look at the subject, you see on the right side, always the same naming. If you go to the next slide. Also the properties and even the zoning of objects is now standardized in a way. It's in the model, and you can make use of it. Here you see the baggage handling zones we use as designers. Heat dissipation zones, we also very important for us as designers to do the calculations. And if you go to the next slide, you also see that we also pulled in the URI, which is basically the link to the bSDD. So if you hand over this information or this model to a next user, he can press the button and he can see the definition. And in that way, we ensure that the next person that is working understands what we created. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, this is another typical example of how we use that. So for us, the capacity, of course, is very important. And all these other features like the weight to do the structural calculation. And if you go to the next slide. You see that apart from using this to populate your model as a model author, you can also, as a client or as a designer or as a constructor, you can contractor, you can from the bSDD extract an IDS, which is information delivery specification, which is a way to check the information or agree upon the information that you're going to use during the project. So we use the IDS to validate that the information we created is according to the bSDD Airport Domain standard. I think next slide. That this is a summary of what I just showed you. You have the airport domain, you have the modeling software, and you produce area. You model your software, you pull in the bSDD data, create an IFC. You pull in the bSDD data into, in this case, USBIM IDS editor to create an IDS. Use the IDS to validate the information that's in the IFC. And if there are errors, you can use another open standard called BCF to communicate the errors in the model, correct them, and produce a fully standard digitalized IFC model, which is compliant with the bSDD airport domain. Next slide.
Yes, so last slide, the quick summary of what we just presented. IFC serves as the common language across all phases and disciplines, here focusing primarily on BHS, but yeah, I think we can use this for all of the other disciplines or categories within airports as well. Mike, I think, presented that IFC enables better collaboration throughout the supply chain by speaking that same language. And this approach benefits really everyone in the supply chain. So from design to construction to operation, but also the software vendors that obviously play a huge role. And last but not least is that collaboration is key. So also collaboration with all of you guys. We've already gotten a lot of interest in helping with this. So we are looking forward to organizing that and moving this project a little bit quicker than what we've been able to do so for the last, I think, like 6 years now. Next steps is the joint session with Vanderlande. Edwin is in the call right now, but it will be focusing on technical alignment of the BHS and IFC. But also looking at the airport domain in relation to the other buildingSMART domains. For example, the railway domain, the infra domain, building domain. The picture that you see on the right corner, it shows Schiphol Plaza. And basically all of the different colors represent different domains. So even though we are at an airport here, it's really not that airport specific. So we need to agree on what we call those things that are relevant for both airports, but also for the other domains. Because I don't think it's up to us to come up with something and then another domain calling it something else. Well, if you go out and look at that thing, it's literally the same thing. So we need to combine that knowledge to one language. And I think that's something that we'll have to focus on at the next summits that are coming up. But I think a topic that is very well, most people are aware that we need to do this. And that is it for this presentation. Are there any questions?
Yes, one perhaps. The information you just showed, Mike, that was based on the current set out in the bSDD.
Yes.
Okay. So what was I looking at the actual implementation or at an example?
Actual implementation.
Okay. So your company is already using the current release of the bSDD.
Now we are piloting the current release of bSDD.
Piloting. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm asking because the idea we had at Vanderlande about the top-down structure hierarchy, and that is of course not implemented in this example. So I'm wondering into what regard it's applicable for change.
I think I think those are a bit two separate things. It's because we have IFC and we have the bSDD, and IFC is more the hierarchical part of what we're talking. So I think one thing doesn't combined your hierarchy combined with the bSDD. I think it merges.
Yeah. And then our other remark about because I saw you had selected also inclined conveyors and declined conveyors as a separate class, while we proposed actually to have them in properties. So how does that align then?
Yeah, I think those are the properties you see now. They are solely gathered from design perspective. Now we're working with you guys, Vanderlande, so we get new insights. And of course, Rome also was not built in one day, so I think it will have iterations and changes as well.
Yeah.
We realize that this is still quite kind of new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the bSDD is up for versioning, so we can publish a new version. That does not mean that the old version will be deleted. So anyone using the actual version can still go on using it.
Oh, okay.
But we will
That's
have
good.
an updated and a newer version, and we can always relate to that if it's needed.
Yeah. Do we still have time? Because then because I did some internal, I just want to show you an example of what a colleague of us have been working upon even before we joined this initiative. And will just show you an IFC which we have created based upon our input files, and our input files are tool agnostic, so they're just a system definition in XML, XLM, and a library in XML. And we were able to create something like this directly from those two text files. And this was done prior to the acquisition with buildingSMART, but it actually already we are already able to create this. So because that was one of my concerns in last meeting we had, I assumed we could automate this, and I got now confirmation that we can. So I just want to show you this.
Yeah.
A bit of progress.
Great. Looks good. Thank you. Any other questions from the people in the call?
Yes, Ruska, thank you. Can I just say, first of all, that's a beautiful presentation. I thought I was really impressed, actually. That's great work. So knitting together the brilliant expertise that the Vanderlande guys have with IFC, and so there's some real stuff being done here. That's very impressive. I did have a technical question, which is about, at Heathrow we have the weigh, label, and dispatch conveyor. I'm thinking about the check-in conveyor. So would that be an attribute of the check-in conveyor, that whether it was a weigh or a label or a dispatch conveyor?
That's a property, I guess, huh?
Yeah, property, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, okay, fine. The other point I'd just like to make is the thing that you mentioned there, Ariska. It's really important to be able to look out as well. This is focusing on baggage and the links with IFC. But of course, ultimately, we need to be able to, as you've said, is linked with the other systems, particularly, for example, train schedules coming in for any airport, transit schedules, and so on. So, any airport is a multimodal transport hub, effectively. And so ultimately, we need to be able to reach out to these other, which is part of this, some of the steps to come. So I look forward to that too. All right, enough from me, thanks.
Even the examples, that Martin showed in the presentation, the airport-specific objects, you can even, except for the de-icing system, probably question yourself whether they are really that airport specific, because you also have them at train stations, international train stations or ports. But they are very important for airports, and we haven't really heard anyone else discuss them yet. So we are just including them, and hopefully we can also use it as a first topic of conversation with the other domains to kind of get the conversation going.
Okay, good point. I can help with that based on my experience at Heathrow.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Good.
Boris.
Okay.
You are still muted, Boris.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to know if I saw that there were implementation previewed in both IFC4 and IFC 4.3 schemas. Is that right? Okay, so it will be for both schemas. Okay,
I think, Mike, we made the mapping in for to IFC4 because we started this a long time ago.
No, I think in the bSDD currently the only schema that is incorporated into the bSDD is 4.3. So the only relation we can create is 4.3 at this moment. If buildingSMART decides to publish, and I understood that they will decide to publish other versions of IFC, we can of course relate to those as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No more questions? 3 more minutes before the time is up. All right. Well, hopefully next year we can have Edwin give the presentation with some more details.
Perhaps.
Or at least do it together.
Currently, I'm of course I'm connected to the BIM office at Vanderlande. And of course, I have a colleague who's much more experienced with IFCs. That's our BIM manager, and I hope he will find the time to to be able to participate as well.
Yep, we do too. But we're already really appreciating the collaboration as what it is right now, and hopefully move forward with it and really use it as the base for continuing on with the other survey results, because those have been on the shelf for quite some time now. So we might have to redo them next year, but we'll see. All right. Well, thank you all for your time, and looking forward to talking to you all at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.